All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second ever version of Mike Talks. This week, very happy to catch up with and chat to a really good friend of mine and one of the funniest guys I know and one of the happiest guys I know, Luke Kidgell. How are you, man? Good to see you.
Mate, what an intro. Thank you very much for having me. Imagine if that's how you introduced your mate, like at a pub when you caught up with him. Like, because you pitched this to me just before we started. It's like, it's just me catching up with a mate every Friday. And then, like, imagine if we went to the pub this Friday, you were like, and there he is, one of the funniest men I know. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, like I invite you to the pub with like a couple of my high school mates. Like, guys, I know we went to high school together, but I'd love you to meet Luke. He's one of the funniest guys I know.
Yep.
He's just a great
He's got a heart of gold.
You know, I know we've been friends since high school, but when I met Luke, things really started to get better for me. But I'm still friends with you guys.
Yeah, you guys are fine. But anyway, Luke's here. So I imagine that's how that would play out.
Well, sure. Sorry, man. I'm sorry if I embarrassed you with my opener. Like, I just wanted to. No. I like to flatter my guests. I don't want my guests. Yeah. I want my guests feeling comfortable and at ease before they come on.
Nah. I'm absolutely humbled to be here. And I just wanted to point out that the day that we're recording this is the day before we could do this in person tomorrow. Yeah,
but I was
if you just had waited one day, we could have just been hanging out.
I was actually thinking about this though. Like, do you think Zoom recordings, because they're so convenient, Zoom recordings are so convenient, do you think they're going to stop? Because to be honest, the idea of like one of us driving to the other person and sitting down in person and doing this just feels so much more tedious than just talking on a call like this. Don't you reckon?
Right. I mean, yeah, this is convenient, but I guess if you're really true to your art and you really want to catch up with your friends and give them that intro in person, then eventually you're going to have to start driving.
That's true. Yeah. Well, this is Mike Talks, which is a new thing I'm doing, as I told you, and some of the listeners might not be familiar. Last week, I had a guy, Dave Lee, who's a pop culture YouTuber from Australia, who's really cool.
Right.
But yeah, obviously you are a comedian.
Like this is called Mike Talks, but like it implies that your other podcast, you just like grunt or something like that.
Mike grunts.
Yeah, or just complete silence for 45 minutes and people are like, wow, this is good art.
Powerful stuff. Powerful. Yeah. There's actually a I don't know how much you've dabbled into the world of music, but there's a classical composer. I don't know what his name is, but he wrote a piece of music that's, I don't know what it's called either, but I think it's called 4 minutes and 12 seconds or something like that. And the whole sheet music is just rests. Like a rest is silence. So the whole piece of music is just like 100 bars of nothing. And he goes and sits at the piano and he's reading the music and it's all rest. So he's not doing anything. And then after 4 minutes and 12 seconds, he stops and everyone applauds because he's played this song he's written.
Is that like a sketch or a real thing that happened?
It's a legitimate thing. I can't remember what it's called. Someone who's listening will know what it is. But yeah, and then at when I was at school, we used to go on camps and there was like a talent quest. And my brother did that as his act at the talent quest one year. So he just sat there for 4 minutes, 12 seconds. Yeah, which pretty bold because after about 2 minutes, you're getting a bit tired of it.
I mean, that's one of those bits that I think, didn't Hamish come on your podcast once and talk about this thing in comedy? It's about is it the trough?
No, it's the dip.
It's like about
the dip.
The dip, yes. So that's one of those bits where there is a dip and then it comes back around again towards the end. As you start nearing the 3-minute 30 mark, you have to applaud the commitment of reading along the sheet music. I reckon.
0 to 1 minute, you're at the top, and then 1 minute through 3 minutes 30, you're in the dip.
It's grim.
3 minutes 30 to the end, you've peaked out of the dip again. But yeah, it's funny, you'll probably attest to this. When I had Hamish on and he talked about the dip, so many people, including you and Lewis and like my brother and like my cousins and pretty much everyone who's ever known me, pretty much did some different wording of like, the classic mic dip, as if it's like
Yeah.
this is a known thing in my style of humor.
Oh yeah, your style of comedy is repeat a thing. I mean, a great example is we were streaming playing Among Us the other night, and someone started playing fart sounds. Now I'm not sure if it was you originally. I think it might have been Lewis.
It was not me.
Yes.
I was framed by Ruben.
With just a lot of your like comedy, it's like, all right, this is hit once, and then he just keeps going again, and it's not funny, right? And then I guess by like the 10th callback, I start to come aboard again. I'm like, okay, you know what? His commitment to this bit is kind of getting me here. So and there's something bold about your style of comedy.
The specific moment that on the Among Us stream that I did that was probably dip worthy was you were having some problem setting up the game, and then Lewis said, "Oh, I've had this before. You just have to do this." And then like every time something happened, I'd be like, "Oh, guys, I think Lewis has had this before. You might have to get him to. You might have to ask him. He'll know he's handled this before." And I just kept saying that whenever Lewis said something. And I definitely did feel that I was in the dip. But as Hamish told me, you do not quit in the dip. You just keep going.
I think you take that advice far too literally, because in his like, I guess, explanation, the original joke had to be funny. Often you'll just like start off in the dip and then try and get out of the dip, but it's like there was never a high, so it never even dipped. It was just a constant low.
Do you remember about over a year ago, I was house sitting at my brother's apartment in Richmond, and you guys
was a good one.
You guys came over for dinner, and for whatever reason, my brother had a watering can like inside his apartment. I guess because
it's still one of the funniest things Mike's ever done.
and I think it was like, I asked if you wanted a beer and you were like, yes. And then I handed you the beer and you went to open it, and I got the watering can, which was filled with water. I'm like, oh, hang on, I just need to water the beer. And I just poured water all over your beer.
And then that was funny because it was disrespectful for many reasons. One, it was disrespectful to me because he poured water in my beer. It was disrespectful to his brother's house because we were just in the living room and Mark's got a watering can just watering the floor. And then he goes, oh, hang on, I think he was like, oh, guys, I think the toilet needs a water. And then he starts going to the toilet, watering the toilet. And then he starts watering the table, just and then the couch, which was pretty disrespectful.
Sorry, guys, just got to water the couch.
Yep. And then there was a dip. And then I think I came back around again when we were saying goodbye, and you tried to water the handshake at the end, which I really...
You watered the mic. You ended up watering the mic.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. As in
I thought you needed a little bit of a water.
Yeah, and it was good. It was basically a shower. A water is just like a shower. You're showering the beer. Everyone needs to get clean sometimes.
I mean, yeah, but it's a cold, inconvenient shower.
Yeah, that's true. And you're just sort of standing there wet. The floor's wet. Looks like you pissed yourself because there's a puddle underneath you.
Yeah. And you're like, why am I in my brother's apartment? This is weird.
You mentioned this sort of at the start, but we're coming out of lockdown here in Melbourne. By the time this is out on Friday, we will be out of lockdown for a few days. How good's that? How bloody good's that?
By the time this is out, shit might have already hit the fan. You know what I mean? Shit might have just already gone downhill and we may be locked up again. I hope they give us at least a 2-week break from it, because there is the concern of obviously people get carried away and just start coughing on each other. Because what's the rules? Like, you're not wearing masks inside, are you? Or is that the rules? I didn't really read too into it.
Yeah, I was thinking that because like the pubs are open, cafes are open and stuff, but I can't imagine
you'll have to wear masks.
Yeah, I can't imagine people like sipping beers in the beer garden of a pub wearing masks and chatting and
There'll
stuff.
be a lot of chin action with the masks, where people just rest the mask on their chin and go, well, I'm kind of doing it. You see a lot of that when people are walking around. Like when I run, I don't wear a mask, right? But I always try and give people quite a wide berth. Like I don't get anywhere near anyone because I know some people are funny about it still. But when I'm walking, like I've never been, unless you have a heart condition or some medical thing, I've never been so out of breath where I've just been strolling along that I've been like, oh, I cannot breathe with this mask on.
The only thing I don't like about it when you're walking is sometimes it might just be me, and this is kind of gross, but like, do you find that like, because you're breathing into the mask, like, I guess the humidity of your breath is being absorbed into the mask, and then you end up with like a wet mask that's just touching your face, and it's like your own mouth
You've got
sweat.
very humid breath.
Yeah.
You
Do you
got
get
tropical
that?
breath.
Well, it's also it's also like the sweat that comes because your mouth is hidden under a mask. Like you're naturally kind of sweating. If you've got a bit of facial hair under there, you're getting a bit moist under there.
I think I get itchy before I get. Yeah, I guess it gets a little moist. I chuck on the mask when I like go for a run, and then I stopped at an oval the other day. So when I stopped, I chucked on the mask, and because I was still panting from the run, oh boy, yeah, it was a sauna in there. It was nasty, and yeah, it wasn't good. But hopefully, dude, masks in summer are going to be awful. That's going to be bad. Like 38 degrees, just going down to the shops will be. It's already a hard task, but with a mask on, whew.
But people like going to the beach and they're just not going to wear masks. Like it just won't happen.
No,
I don't think.
I reckon they'll just get phased out. Maybe people will just kind of give up, and they'll start policing it less and less until eventually they just say, we're not doing it anymore. I reckon that's how it will go, because people are at the end of their compliance now currently, I think. Yeah. Like there's people, you like look around, like there's people sinking beers in the park, which is illegal, right?
It has been, like, it'll be a bit looser now, but yeah, more or less, like people have been.
No, but isn't just sinking beers in public illegal? I don't know. Or is that?
I think you're allowed to in like parks. Like I think if you're like just walking down the street, drinking and having open liquor, it's illegal. But I'm pretty sure in parks you're allowed to have alcohol.
Oh, cool. Because I just thought like it was just a bit of like, yeah, well, you know what, mate, we can't go to the pub, so you got to let us do it here. Kind of vibe. Because I'll just be running around like my local footy oval. Like I'll run past it, and there's just like a bunch of dads from the footy club just deck chairs on the oval smashing beers, and I'm just like, I mean, look, they've got them on a loophole there. I mean, like they, there's not a lot you can do.
Have you seen like some people are going to like some people are bringing whole tables, like fold out tables and chairs, like having a bloody party. Like, pretty much
it's
bringing
like
their
BYO
whole backyard.
pub.
Yeah. It's pretty
They're like, you're not going to open the pub, we'll just make our own.
Yeah, they've got someone behind a bar counter just like serving drinks and stuff.
Well, I tried to get an esky from Bunnings, and they are sold out, dude. They're sold out of fire pits, eskies, everything that like you need to have a good time in a park. They're sold out, which means it's happening everywhere.
I reckon I've actually figured out how we can both fix the struggling economy and get more people in jobs, right? And let people have fun in a park, right? Every local council assigns one out of work bartender to man each park in the council 24 hours a day, and they just stand there. They've got all their drinks behind them, and people can come to the park and buy drinks, and then we've solved the problem. Yeah, I think I've solved it.
There's been like coffee vans have been doing great these last couple of months. They just sit next to like a pretty like passive area where a lot of people are coming through. And mate, I've seen the ice cream truck. Yeah. He's not even driving around anymore. He's just stationary, and he's probably like making the most money he ever has, which is a problem as well, because then people just walk along the bike tracks just licking ice creams instead of wearing masks. But you know what? Good on him. That one guy is making bank, and I respect that.
I always thought ice cream trucks were really weird. Don't you reckon there's something weird about eating ice cream that's been sitting in a truck all day? Surely
it's been refrigerated.
Surely the petrol fumes or something are soggying it up, or I don't know. I don't trust ice cream from an ice cream truck.
You're so weird. Lewis has this thing where he doesn't trust airport food, right? But he's less likely to eat food from a food court. Do you remember this from the radio station? I thought that it was so weird. You're like that with ice cream. Like he would go to the sushi place outdoors on the street, on Clarendon Street, but he
Yeah.
wouldn't go to the sushi place in the
Oh,
complex near Coles
but
because
that
he was
place
like,
is
oh,
so
I don't
good.
want, I know. He was like, but I don't want food court sushi. I'm like, they're probably getting the fish from the same place.
Yeah.
Like,
That guy,
of
the
course
guy
they
that
are.
runs that sushi place,
He
for
probably
people
also
who,
runs the one down the road.
yeah, no, but the guy who runs that place, his name's Tony. He's a really nice guy. And he's the same one that people who listen to Hamish and Andy, he's the one that Jack exchanged the autographs from Hamish and Andy for free sushi. It's that
Yes.
guy. So, and he's a really, really nice guy. And they were closed for a long time because of COVID. It's great to see him back. But Tony's a really
but
good
yeah,
guy.
that's just so funny. Just like that level of fussy, like it's the same thing of like, it doesn't change the food, dude. Just because it's in a complex or in an airport. Lewis has this thing about airports going like, no, but all the food has to go through customs. So it's all been scanned. And I'm like, okay, so your lettuce has been scanned. Like, so what? Like, does it,
Yeah.
it doesn't affect
It's like
the quality?
radiated.
Yeah, he has
Well-
this like a weird thing about it. And you saying like, oh, the fumes get into the ice cream. It's the same shit.
No, but the other thing I don't like about ice cream shops, ice cream vans specifically, is it's opportunistic, and I feel like I'm being exploited because the guy who owns the van is like, oh, it's a pretty hot day. I'll drive down to the beach, and everyone at the beach is going to walk past me and want an ice cream. Like, I don't like I feel like I'm being exploited by this guy who's bought an ice cream van, and I don't want to support that. I want to go to the local ice cream shop and get ice cream from there.
So you want to go to them and be like, you just want to be pat on the back, being like, I've put in all the effort here. Here's $7.50. Have a great day. You just want that like feeling. Whereas
No,
why can't you just respect a guy he's an entrepreneur, he's got some hustle, and he knows his market, which is beach in the summer.
Yeah, but I also think like a lot of ice cream van drivers probably like scratch their ass with the scoop, and I'm like, ooh, I'm eating ass scoop, and I just think it's fucking. I just don't like
I
it.
think
The whole concept
I
of it.
think
The
one
way
time
they lure you in with music. Oh god.
you were wronged one time by an ice cream van, and I don't want to know the story, to be honest.
I never
You've got
was.
this is a personal vendetta at this point. It's, he wipes his ass with the scoop. There's no way they do that. But
How
you know
do
what
you
is
know?
annoying? The music. The music, I was thinking about that because you know when it drives past your house and it obviously fades into your earshot, then it fades back out as it keeps going past.
Yeah.
Imagine, so you know like when it gets to its peak, when it drives past your house and you're like, oh, fuck, dude, just piss off, right? Imagine being at the peak all day long, driving around in the car. Because it's annoying in the distance, like dung, dung,
Yeah,
dung,
and there's
dung,
only
dung,
usually
dung.
one song. There's just one song per ice cream.
Yeah,
Like,
and they all have the same song.
yeah, and you've
Like
got to
there's
listen
one
to
bloke
it
who's
all day.
dude, the same bloke in this red ice cream van has been doing my area since I was a kid. He's now 20 years into the biz, and
Wow.
occasionally, like, dude, I heard him the other day. It was lockdown in like early September. It was raining, and I was like, geez, this bloke's ambitious. Like, you're literally not allowed to. This is not one of the 4 reasons to leave the house is get
To
an
sell
ice cream from this bloke. Like, mate, you are not an essential food item.
You could
and he's
be on a
literally like
run,
telling the
though.
cops, but he's telling the cops from like 2 kilometers away, like, I'm breaking the
I'm
law.
here.
Ding, ding, ding.
The cops like pull him over, and they're like, "All right, we'll let you keep going, but we want free ice cream for life."
Yeah, those.
He's
You're
like,
right.
"All right,
You know
I
what,
don't
man?
want
I
any
think
trouble. I don't want any trouble."
I think you'd up putting me off ice cream, guys. I've never been a massive supporter of them, but I've never been weirdly against them.
There's something weird about people who invest in ice cream vans. It's a weird thing to get into. Why would you choose to do that? That's what I want to know.
It's kind of just like a drunk decision you make with your friends. You know, like everyone's had that point where it's been like 3 a.m., you're at a house party and it's winding down and you just like go to your mate, you're like, dude, we should start a food truck. And you're like, yes, like I would be on I could cook the kebabs and they're like, what would you do? I'd be like, I just do the accounting. Like I'm not really good for that business, but
Yeah,
I could
it's like-
drive it or something like that.
I don't want to be in the van. I'll do all the stuff outside the van. You guys drive the
Yeah.
van around and sell all the food and park
Yeah, I
outside
would-
Revs on a Saturday night or something like that.
Yeah. Just park down like halfway down High Street in the Thornbury and just fingers crossed you hope you get people on the way home. Just going, because really you're targeting those vans would make most of their money out of intoxicated people, which
like
seems
the kebab
immoral.
vans and stuff.
Yes, for sure. Doesn't that seem immoral to you? Like, they're exploiting drunk people.
I mean,
but I guess they're
but you could
providing
say
a
the same
service.
you could say the same about Macca's. Like McDonald's probably makes tons of money off drunk people.
That's the
So-
only time I ever have Macca's.
Well,
I don't. That's
I
gross.
haven't-
I don't like it.
I have McFlurries all the time because I love McFlurries. But yeah, like I really like Macca's burgers as well. But I'll have it. I love nuggets the most.
Yeah, right. I prefer visiting the Colonel when I'm sober because that's a more informed decision.
You think so? I always feel shit after KFC though. Like I love it.
Oh,
don't
yeah,
get me
yeah.
wrong. But I feel
on the
gross
way
after
down. Oh, it's so regrettable though. Half an hour later.
What are you looking forward to most coming out of lockdown now? Like what do you want to do most of all?
Oh, such a boring answer, but like, I don't know, it's lame. Like I could go the hey, bloody boys route, be like, hey guys, the pub's back, huh? Can everybody get on the pub? And it's pathetic because I'm already booked in for Thursday. So I'm pretty excited about that. But I think just seeing family regularly, like having a dinner with mum and dad again, nice. Seeing close friends, because I've been going for walks with them, but it's not the same when, you feel like a bit secretive when you're like, all right, we'll meet here. And even though it's legal, you just feel weird going like, all right, I'll meet you at this park. You park here and you park there. And then we'll walk and meet in the middle. And it's just like, I just want to go over and hang out with my friends and not have to be walking or outside or something. I think I'm just looking forward to a bit of normality. Again, what a boring answer. I'm sorry. I've just soured the mood. What about you, Mike?
Absolutely. You know what I'm actually looking forward to most? And it's sort of similar, but what I'm looking forward to is like, because right now we've been in lockdown here in Melbourne for 12 weeks. We really haven't done anything social aside from these walks that you've mentioned. What I'm looking forward to is getting back to a point where I'm excited to leave a party. Like I've been at the party for 2 hours and I'm like, all right, I can finally leave and go home and be by myself again. That's what I'm excited for. I'm excited to get sick of things and to not want to go to things and be like,
wow,
I have to go to bloody Damo's communion, but I'll only stay for 2 hours and then I'm going to leave. Yeah,
right. So you're excited of like, just, I guess, you take it for granted, wanting to bail from your friends, don't you? And now all you want to do is be with them. Like, mate, I'll be here. We're doing an all-nighter. All right, we need to make up for lost time. But yeah, give it like a month. Honestly, you'll see every friend once, and that'll be enough to make up for the lost time. Then the next time they ask you to catch up, you'll be like, I think I'm busy doing nothing.
The thing about me is, and I don't know if other people are like this, but anytime I have any social event planned, no matter how big or small, as soon as I leave the house to go to that event, I am instantly thinking of how and when I'm going to be leaving to go home. Like my main thought is, how long do I have to stay and when can I leave? Lewis is a bit like that as well.
Yeah, but now I'm so self-conscious now. Whenever I invite you to an event, I'll just be looking over at you going, oh, he's planning his escape route. He's going to jump the fence. He hates this. He hates this.
It's not an escape route. It's like, I love seeing my friends, but eventually I want to leave.
Right.
And I want the
You love seeing your friends.
Yeah.
But you love seeing them for like, there's like a perfect amount of time. Your friendship also has a dip, just like your comedy. Like you're like, I love it at the start. And then it just gets a bit stale for me. Does it ever get back at the end where you're like, you know what, I'm glad I stayed?
Yeah.
Or is it just a constant
No, it does happen. But like, what I hate about leaving events is like, because you're thinking about leaving and then you like, people don't talk about this, but you sort of think about leaving and then you kind of do one of these. You're like, all right. Don't you reckon that's what people do before they leave?
Every time Mike calls me, right? Every time Mike and I speak on the phone, it always ends. Like we might talk for like 3 minutes, but there's guaranteed 5 minutes after that of us going, all right, hooroo. All
I'm
right.
gonna head off. All
All
right.
right, mate. Well,
But
it's been a blast. All right. I'll catch you later. And that will go on for 5 minutes. Sometimes I'll just pass the phone over to Meg and she'll start going, all right, Mike. All right. And then Mike will go, all right, Meg. All right.
but it's funny because like socially speaking, like we have this weird social etiquette as humans, or at least like all the humans I know, where like we're not comfortable just standing up and being like, all right, I'm heading off, bye. Like it has to be this big thing. It has to be like,
you haven't met
all
Lewis
right.
Spears. Well, you have, and you
I
clearly
have
don't
actually.
remember what he does. One time it was my 21st birthday celebrations. You were
was at
there.
this. Yeah, it was at
I
the
know. We were
place in
at that
Abbotsford or
Richmond,
like
Richmond or
no,
Abbotsford, something like
more
that.
like Collingwood, Smith
Collingwood,
Street kind
I
of
don't
area.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were at some bar, and then it gets to like not late, like maybe like, you know, in the 21st, as a mate who does like a professional thing with you, like he's the Lewis from Luke and Lewis, you'd think, oh, he should stay till midnight minimum. Right? Like we were kicking on to like 2, but if he stays till midnight, he doesn't drink. That's just a good hit out as a friend.
Yeah.
You know, it rolls around to like 10 p.m. He's probably been there for 2 hours and he's like, oh man, I'm probably just gonna head off. He's like, Jazz kind of wants to go and I'm not opposed to it. And I'm like, oh, cool. I was like, yeah, cool.
You know what?
And then I remember like a few people like, oh, so where's Lewis? And I was like, oh, he's gone. And you're like, what do you mean he's gone? I'm like, he just left. He doesn't even say goodbye to his other friends as well.
Yeah, but I actually respect that. I respect that confidence because it's like, you know, you get up, you announce, oh, I'm probably going to head off, guys. And everyone's like, oh, no, you know, why are you going? Stay. And you're just like, no. Like,
you guys aren't as good as you think you are.
No, like, I love all my friends, but it just gets to a point where you're like, oh, sometimes like I think I've done this to you on the phone as a joke, but sometimes, and this is how I wish you could end conversations with people. I'd just be like, all right, man, well, I'm sick of talking. Bye. And then I just hang up. Like, I just wish we could get to a point in society where you can be like, hey, mate, I'm sick of hanging out. I'm heading off. And you just walk off. There is no more explanation required. You just walk off.
Here's the thing. It's like, I kind of wish we lived in a society that was that blunt in all areas. But at the same time, I do not want to be on the receiving end of that level of bluntness. Like, I just want to be giving it to people and other people being really nice back, you know, because I'm selfish. But imagine if like you just said it to me once.
Offensive.
Right. But imagine if one day you were just like, oh man, I'm sick of hanging out with you. On the way home, I'd be like tapping my fingers on the steering wheel going, did I say something wrong? Like,
no, but I just think like, you know, it's just like, hey, I think it should be more like, hey man, had a great time. Sick of hanging out now. Sorry. Like someone's mid-sentence. Someone's mid-sentence. I'm sorry, mate. Stop, shut your mouth. Sick of talking. Sick of hanging out. I'm heading home. It's not, and it's like, we'll catch up.
It's not like, all right, mate, go fuck yourself. I'm going to head off. It's more of like, it's a bit civil.
Yeah, it's civil. It's like, hey man, you're my friend and I love you, but I'm sick of hanging out. I want to go home. Like, we just need to get to that point, I think.
Yeah. But the problem is when it gets to that point and that's the norm, then the blunt, stubborn people are going to be like, all right, mate, eat turds. I'm off. You know, they're going to start being really rude and be like, all right, suck a butt. Cool. You know, because the rest of us will just be being like, I'm sick of hanging out with you. But the real rude people, you don't want to see. You know, if you give them an inch, they'll take a meter.
Yeah,
you know, you don't want to give them that level of bluntness as the norm.
Interesting. You went with, if you give them an inch, they'll take a meter, because you've swapped between two different systems of measurement.
I was hoping you wouldn't pick up on it. I realized as soon as I said it that I switched from imperial to metric, and I went, that's not how the saying goes.
It doesn't sound as good if you like, you know, you give people a centimeter, they take a bloody meter. It doesn't sound as good, does it? It doesn't have a ring to it.
What's the saying?
If you give people an inch, they'll take a mile.
That's it. Yep. Yeah. I really stuffed up the saying.
The Subway edition is, you know, if you give people a 6-inch, they'll take a foot long.
Yeah. That's also kind of like, just if you just mixing it up completely, going up, you give people a milliliter and they'll take a kilo. You know, it's just like, what?
Hey, I was listening to your podcast today in the car, and you were talking about the grand final, the AFL grand final, which just happened. And do you go for Melbourne?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So I have actually
Who
decided
do you go for,
that
Essendon or
I
Collingwood?
go. Well, this is the thing. I go for Essendon, and
Yeah.
like I've never been that into AFL, which is funny because like my dad loves AFL. My mum's side of the family are massive Essendon fans. Like they go to all the games, they love it, and that's why I go for Essendon. Funnily enough, like I know all, like pretty much all of those original 16 clubs. I know like all the theme songs to them. Like I think just as a kid, I really liked all the AFL club songs. I really like them. Like obviously,
you're
oh,
a
yeah.
drama kid that has AFL parents. You know,
I
you're like, look,
remember.
I'm not fussed about the game, but the bit afterwards where they sing in the circle, very
Yeah.
nice.
I remember as a kid, me and my brother used to walk around. Like we don't even go for Melbourne. We'd walk around
We
the house.
are Geelong, the greatest team of all. Hey, get it!
We'd just literally be walking around the house going, "It's a grand old flag. It's a high flying flag." And Mum would just be like, "You don't even go for Melbourne. Why are you singing?" And it's like, "Mum, the music is the best part of the AFL." Like,
Mum, let me enjoy the song. You know,
I remember in 2004 when Port Adelaide won the grand final, and I heard their song for the first time, which is one of the
how
better
does
ones.
that
It's
one
like,
go again?
like, we've got the power to win, the power to.
It's the
Port
true
Adelaide.
Port Adelaide aggression.
Yeah. I remember when me and my brother first heard that, we were like, oh my God. And for the rest of the year, we're just like, we've got the power to win.
I remember that era of my life where it's like, you don't really know much music yet. Like you just don't know that like many songs exist. Like there was a period of my life where like the
Crazy
only
Frog.
songs I knew were like, I'm a gummy bear, Crazy Frog, Cats in the Cradle, and It's a Grand Old Flag. And I was like, these are
Lifestyles of the rich and the famous.
yeah, and Good Charlotte, of course. So it's like, there's like, like 10 songs, right? And I used to be into U2 as a kid, like heaps. I remember when the Saints Coming was released.
You listen
and I
to
was
what
like,
your dad listens to.
Yeah,
Like,
and it was just
we used to
Queen,
love- yeah.
U2, and the Chili Peppers.
What about Midnight Oil? My dad loved
Oh,
Midnight
of course.
Oil.
Yeah, Midnight Oil, Australian Crawl, all the dad bands like Mental as Anything, David Bowie. It's just like every dad music, you know.
Because we had a lot of my mum would drive us a lot. So we'd be listening to like Elvis, Tom Jones, ABBA. Like we loved ABBA because like, you know, like, and ABBA's music is really good, but like there's not many guys who are like, I just fucking love ABBA, but I reckon ABBA's awesome. Their songs are so good.
I was saying to Meg the other day, I was like, I think ABBA are overrated. Like I was like, I don't know, like they got their like 3 hits that everyone knows. But
clearly you didn't grow up listening to the greatest hits of ABBA CD, double CD that your mum had in her car.
My mum was into this band, Sherbet. You know the band that sing How's That?
I've heard of them, but I can't think of the song.
Oh, mate, don't worry. You are not the only one who is who's not familiar. It was and Tom Jones got a bit of a thumping. What's New Pussycat was one of my favorite tracks as an 8-year-old.
I was gonna say Hey There Delilah, but it's not Hey There Delilah. Is it? It's why Delilah? Did you ever hear that one?
No.
That's a classic Tom Jones hit. But yeah, What's New Pussycat? Wow. And you know what I like about What's New Pussycat? You never find out what happens to the pussycat. You never find out what's new with the pussycat. It's a cliffhanger song.
It's kind of like if like Tom Jones just came out there and went, why did the chicken cross the road? And was like, thank you very much. Yeah. Good night. And everyone's like, dude, you can't just leave us on that. You know?
Yeah, it pretty much is. Like he's
maybe Tom Jones and the Baha Men got together and just to fuck with everyone, they were like, who let the dogs out? And what's New Pussycat?
Another song where we never find out the answer to the question.
Yeah, that's annoying.
How did we even get onto this?
We'll talk about the grand final.
Yeah. So I, funnily enough, I was telling Charlie Clausen this. He does TOEFOP with Will Anderson. I was telling Charlie this because when I was a kid, one of my relatives, and I say relatives really loosely, like relatives, he's essentially like a third cousin or something. He was captain of the Western Bulldogs. His name is Daniel Jan Siracusa. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Yeah. So his dad is my mum's first cousin. So we're like second cousins or something. And that was like, for whatever reason, he was a pretty good footballer and like pretty big back in when I was at primary school.
Yeah.
And
he was on footy cards. That's like as big as you need to be.
And I think he's a coach. He's like a coach now. And I used to tell everyone, my cousin's Gia. Gia's my bloody cousin, right? Never mentioned, I've never met him. Like, we never see their family. Like, and like pretty much have nothing to do with him. Just the fact that he is related to me. And I remember in primary school, one guy was like a massive Bulldog supporter. And he's like, oh, can you get me Gia's autograph? And I, knowing for a fact there was no way I could get his autograph, right? I was just like, yeah, of course, man. He's my cousin. He'd do anything for me. And then you know what's funny? Like 10 years later, I was working at Dan Murphy's and Gia came in and I didn't even recognize him. One of my colleagues was like, oh, that guy's Daniel Jansukiza. He's like the captain of the Bulldogs, or he was the captain of the Bulldogs. And I was like,
man, it's my cousin.
I was like, oh, that's my cousin. And I went up to him. I went up to him and I was like, yeah, hey man. I pretty much just said, hey man, I'm your cousin. He was like, what? I'm like, oh, well, my mum is your dad's cousin. And he was like, okay. And then it was just so awkward. So he just.
And you were like 18 when you did this.
No, I would have been like 21.
Dude, that's so weird. You should have the self-awareness to know not to come up to a stranger and be like, I'm your cousin. Like,
he's not a stranger. He's my cousin.
Never do.
He's not a stranger. He's my cousin. But
he was embarrassing. Because he might know who you are now. Because isn't Will Anderson like a pretty big Bulldogs fan? No.
Well.
Oh, it's Charlie.
No, Will Anderson.
No, isn't Will Anderson? Yeah.
Charlie's a Saints.
But wouldn't he like? I thought Will would be like in with all the ex-players and stuff, you know, of that generation.
I don't know, but when I told Charlie this story, he laughed at me and said, "That is the biggest stretch of a relationship I've ever heard." And he's like, "I'm more related to Gia than you are, and I'm not even Italian." But yeah,
that is absolutely a stretch. I don't think I've ever lied about anyone being like in my family or like, I don't know. I never had, until I started radio, I never ever had a name drop. I never had like,
oh yeah, I know.
I never had a name drop to do or a celebrity person I've ever met even. I didn't have a claim to fame probably till I was like 18 or 19 when I started doing comedy. But again, as we say on Celeb Spots on the Luke and Lewis show, it doesn't count because it's a professional relationship and not just random. Like, I don't know. The only claim to fame, my biggest claim to fame is probably like having Reese Maston's phone number, you know,
which is good. Like Reese,
which is great. Like I'm not mad about that. That's a pretty good claim to fame, but that's the only, I feel like, organic one where, it was like
still fostered by your work in some sense.
Right. But it's like, yeah, I've met a lot more famous people, but I don't feel like that's a claim to fame. I mean, I've high-fived Jimmy Fallon before, but it's not a claim to fame. That was so funny.
And didn't you dab on the show?
Yeah, I dabbed on the Tonight Show. So when I went to New York, right, and I have a bit of it in my comedy special about the Kesha? Backstage interaction I had with Kesha.
Go watch Luke's comedy special at lukekidgell.com. You can buy it.
That's the thing. So I've stumbled across, I guess, celebrities, but it's nothing like substantial. But anyway, so I was in the crowd and Jimmy Fallon at the end of his show, after he finishes his last monologue, the credits start to roll. The Roots come in with like the song, and he runs up the crowd high-fiving people. And I have footage of this and it aired all across the country. He comes up, I kind of stand up, give him a high five as he comes past. Then the lady behind me, she hugs him. So the camera stops panning up the stairs and it then stays on me. And I'm in the row in front and I look up at the monitor, and you see me look up at the monitor. I realize I'm on American national TV and I'm like, I got 3 seconds here, Luke. This is your moment. And this was like, I'm not going to say like this was 2 years after you shouldn't have dabbed.
Yeah.
Like this was way after Vine.
The funniest part about the footage is when you look at the monitor, you see the moment that you like
you
You're
realize.
like, oh my God, I could do a dab here. Like you see that split second of you deciding to dab, and then you just see me kind of be like,
what happened was, so you see me decide to dab, and now I'm by myself. It's not like I'm with a friend at the taping going like, oi, mate, we'll bloody do a dab. I'm like by myself next to some 60-year-old bloke. And so I'm like, oh God. But I was like, this is going to be such a good one to tell the boys when I get back. And I dabbed. And just as I hit the dab, they changed the credits from scrolling credits to a big block at the bottom.
oh,
So they edited out my dab on purpose. And then I checked the episode before and after me. They've never done that style of credits before.
Serious?
Which means there was a discussion in the editing room where the editor was like, we need to edit out this guy's dab.
Surely not. Surely not.
100%. 100%. They cut out the dab with a massive block and they put the credits over the block. And then after the camera moved on, they went back to the scrolling credits.
You got to do a video about that. That's so funny.
I know. I should have at the time. I should have. Maybe
now.
I should.
It's still funny now.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. Like this one time in 2018, I tried to dab on Jimmy Fallon, and here's how it went. That's so sad. That's almost as sad. Like me bragging about that, like 2 years on, is about the equivalent of going up to Gia and Dan Murphy's and saying I'm your cousin. It's fucking pathetic.
I might make a clip of that and put it on Instagram and tag Gia in it. And you know what
did you tell them that on the podcast?
What's that?
Did you say that on Tofop's podcast?
No, I didn't. But I'll just make a clip of me telling you, and then I'll tag you.
Okay, good.
I was thinking the other day, and I got a bit sad because I was like, obviously, like we met in October 2017, which is actually like we probably met like 3 years ago, pretty much today, I reckon. And for like a few years, like I was just working on your radio show. I was like one of my main things that I was doing. And I was just thinking like, fuck, like time just is going so fast. Like, don't you reckon there's points where you're like, oh, well, like that part of my life is kind of over. Like that part of my life of doing radio. I don't do any radio anymore. I don't do any work in radio, like on.
Oh, really?
Radio. No, I'm not doing anything in radio at the moment. It's been all podcasts.
Well, that's because, is that to do with COVID or is that pre-COVID as well?
It's probably mostly to do with COVID, but I'm just wondering.
It's because like you were doing a lot of live sport and cricket and stuff like footy. You were paneling a lot of live sport, which still was happening, but obviously under different circumstances and stuff like that. Plus the company, it's awful time for radio. I feel sorry for them because, it's a commercial radio and a lot of their sponsors have gone out of business or are suffering, therefore can't afford to advertise on radio. So it's affected everyone. I
guess like,
I was thinking about this on my run the other day. I realized that I'm now halfway, like when you finish high school, I'm now on the latter half of like my 20s, not by age, but like, when you get out of high school, I'm after 6 years. I've been in high school for 6 years now. Yeah. And therefore I'm closer.
Been out for 10 years.
I'm now closer to 30 than I am being to in high school. Dude, and that scares me.
I had this, I'll be 26 in a couple months. And like, I'm nearly out of school for 10 years. And when you think about it, high school is 5 years. I've nearly been out of high school for 10 years. And I'm just like, wow, what the hell? Where did all that time go? But I was thinking just about the radio show that you guys did. And like, it was so good to be a part of. It was so much fun. And don't you reckon like, because it was this thing where we were just doing your show, particularly the Modern Digital show. Eventually there was no one paying attention to that show in terms of like.
We worked out about 6 months in because we used to do tests on air to see if our bosses were listening, kind of as a joke. It started off like, no one's listening as a joke. So we used to like do all these segments to test if our boss was listening. Like, we're going to do this if you don't come in and stop us. Like we used to literally do segments like that on radio.
Yeah.
One day we just left. Remember the day we were like, we're going to stop doing the show if you don't come and stop us. And then, right, I'm not going to say who the boss is. I probably have said this on a podcast before, but that was the night of Hamish and Andy's last
I remember
show.
this.
So we left early that day. We left you in the studio just paneling out songs for the last half an hour because we just did this thing like, we're going to leave half an hour early if our boss doesn't come in. Then later on that night, we're walking down the stadium and a lot of people from the radio station are obviously at Hisense Arena because Hamish and Andy are doing their last show. I'm walking down to meet some friends. I walk past our old boss and he goes, "Great show today, lads. I tuned in." And I was like, oh shit, he knows we've left early. And then I realized he was just lying.
Yeah.
And after that moment, we kind of come in the next day. I tell you guys that story. And then we just had this realization. We're like, no one's listening. We can do whatever we want. And it was so fucked, really, giving three guys with the maturity of us. Because you were like the mature one in the group, believe it or not. Like Mike was like the voice of reason. Mike was the only one going, I don't know. And Lewis and I were like, come on.
And then whenever you guys were trying to make me do something I didn't think that we should do on radio, I'd go and get James, who's the youngest of all four of us, but definitely the most mature. And I'm like, James,
they want to do this.
Can you tell him? And James would come in and be like, righto, all right, guys. So what we want to do is not do that because we don't know where these people are going to pop up in the company elsewhere, and we don't want to make fun of anything. And I was like, guys, I mean, like, listen to James. He's a company man.
And then James used to leave, and we're like, oh, James is boring. All right, let's do it.
But like, I was just like, it was so much fun because I think at the end we were doing a show from 6 till 8, and we like, you guys would come in at like 3. I'd sort of wander in at 4, and while I think I was supposed to be, in some way, I think I was supposed to be trying to like help you guys plan the show. I think I was always just like getting involved in or causing more nuisance than anything else. Like, because I just was
not your fault.
No,
because we used to just like, oh, Mike,
unsupervised.
today, like, we want you to like walk up to this person with a recorder on you and say this, and you'd be like, oh, come on, guys.
No, but like, I just think like I got so carried away by like, because I thought you guys were so funny, and I was just like, there's no one's like supervising this. There's no ratings. We can kind of just do whatever we want. And then I was like, all right, but you guys would be like, hey, Mike, today, like, let's just focus the show. We need to focus the show. And I'd just be like grabbing cans of deodorant and being like, do you remember that meme? Like, for those who don't know, like, I'm shaking my hand as if I'm like going to toss the deodorant to Luke. And I'd just be like, hey, Luke, click, click. And then I'd throw the deodorant at you. You're like, no, Mike, we want to actually do work today. I'm like, oh, all right. Oh, boring, guys. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I just feel like there was literally somehow we all got paid to do that show.
For like 2 years we got paid. And it's so funny to me looking back on that now. You don't realize that you're in like the glory days when you're in it. You know what I mean? Like, we look back on that show so fondly because at the time we didn't want to be doing it at the time. Like, at the time we're like, we want to be on real radio. Like, and then I look back at it now going like, we weren't really doing anything that would have earned us to be on real radio. Because whenever we get air checked, I remember there was one air check. It was so bad. You know about this one, the awful one.
The Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer one.
With Dave Cameron. Oh boy. We did this awful show one day. It was near Christmas, and we did this break where Lewis was Santa Claus. And at one point in the break, I heavily implied that Rudolph was fucking Mrs. Claus. Like, and then really heavily implied it.
And then
you played some sound effect.
No, I tried to play a song that was labeled Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, but when I clicked it, it was like, it wasn't the chorus. It was like the start of the song, so it just contextually made no sense and confused it even more. And you guys were like, what the hell?
It was probably one of the worst breaks we've ever put to air. It was not funny. And by the way, you probably like, even listening to this now going, that sounds funny. Like me implying that. It was not funny. Like, it was one of those gross, like, just vulgar jokes that just didn't hit at all. And then he goes, all right, boys, we'll have a listen to the show today. He just clicks randomly to a random timestamp. And the first thing our boss hears, and he's like the boss of like SCA, he's really high up in the company. And he just like hears me saying something about Mrs. Claus and Rudolph doing roots. Lewis then laughs in the recording. And he just turned around and goes, I reckon we'll give today's one a miss, boys.
No, didn't he also then try to skip forward to another one? And when moment he skipped forward was just
yeah. He tried to find, that's right. He tried to find another redeemable puppet show. We were like, maybe give this one a break. We already know what was wrong with it. We shouldn't have aired that. Then he goes, that's right. We'll skip to another one. And then we did another break where we just combined bodily functions like farts and sneezes.
Yeah, that
like,
was that show.
Chew. And then Dave like stereotypically hates fart humor or something on radio, which we didn't know about at the time. And he just, oh man, I feel so bad. I just such a waste of everyone's time. But man, my favorite break we ever did on that show, and I don't know, this up on, you could probably find the video. I'll send it to you if you want to put it in. But it's this break. Do you remember that segment we had called the Gizmo Whiz?
Yeah.
Where
I know what this is.
Lewis would just inform us about some kind of technology news, and that was it. It was like, oh, there's a new iPhone out, and Lewis is the Gizmo Whiz.
Yeah.
One day we were like, you just did something, you paneled it incorrectly. Do you remember that day where like you didn't hit the opener, and we're like, Mike, we said hit the opener, you don't have it ready. You're like, hang on guys, don't have it ready. Start trusting you for a bit. About a minute later, I go to Lewis. I was like, do you even have anything for this segment? And we're all dying with laughter. And Lewis goes, nah. I'm like, do we want to do it? And he goes, and no, Lewis goes, do you even want to do it? I go, nah. And then we just go to a song. We just trust you, did the segment, and then went to the song. And I don't think we've ever laughed harder. It was the funniest thing. It was so disrespectful to the platform.
Oh my God. And also the something that someone reminded me of recently was the amplify the now stuff. Do you remember that? So the station we were on had this it was funny because they had a slogan that was amplify the now. So it'd be like, oh, amplify the now. And we'd hear this every day because we just hear the promos and stuff. And we'd come out of it and start a break. And then we'd never mentioned it, but probably had been hearing it for 6 months or so. And then randomly one day, Lewis just comes back and is like, oh, it's Luke and Lewis, amplify the now. And we just lost it on air because we just weren't expecting him to say that.
Yeah. Good times. It's so much funny. Like now when we do stuff like that at the podcast, it's not as fun because there's nothing rebellious about, like, because it's our own podcast, we own it. Like if we hang up on someone now, it's like, it's not funny because like, I remember that one day the lady came on air and we're on Fox.
The Tim Tams?
We're like this. Yeah, the Tim Tam lady. She just came on, trash Tim Tams. And I just go, Mike, hang up on her. And you were like, no, we can't just, and I was like, hang up on her now. And you just hung up. And that's so funny to do it on radio because you're not allowed to do that. It breaks all the rules of broadcasting. But doing that on a podcast it just doesn't hit the same. You know?
No, it doesn't, does it? Because
there's something fun about the live element.
The other thing about someone ringing into a podcast is like, it's like you don't have a phone line. Like you've organized to call them. So if you then hang up on them, like on the radio, it's funny because they've specifically called you. So it's like you have the right to hang up on them.
It's also they're a stranger as well. Like they probably weren't a fan of us. Whereas like if they're calling our podcast, it's like they're a fan of the podcast. You know,
yeah, like they're definitely a listener. It's not like they've just accidentally tuned in by chance.
There's definitely a lot of things I miss about that for sure. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I mean, this has been really fun, man. Before we wrap it up, like, do you have like 10 more minutes or so?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, rad, man. Do you reckon so what do you like, restrictions are easing, but like stand-up's probably not coming back for a while, I assume. So what are you thinking? Like what's your plan of attack? You're doing a lot of streaming and stuff.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of Twitch streaming. I feel like I was talking about this on my podcast this week. I feel like I've been having a little bit of a identity crisis online with like
Oh,
what I want to do because
really?
not in real life, just like with my content, I just
Mm,
feel like I don't know where I sit anymore because I spent all of 2019 trying to be like the comedian. Like I
hmm
was filming all my shows, editing it all into little clips of crowd work. And I uploaded a clip every single week almost towards the end of 2019 and the start of 2020. And then as stand up stopped, I ran out of footage to post. And then I
Gotcha.
was
Yeah.
like, oh, I could review The Bachelor. And then I just did that for like 2 months. And all of a sudden now my channel is just this Bachelor commentary channel, which
Mm.
is not really what I wanted it to be. So then
But
and
those
now if I
videos are
like,
popular, aren't they? Like people really like them.
yeah, but then now like my other videos just not doing well at all. So
Okay.
I think of maybe going back to doing some sketches.
hmm
I don't know. I've just been having fun streaming. I felt like I just need to wait till stand up comes back. But I'm
Mm.
hoping, I think that they're allowed 50 people outdoors
I
in
think
venues or
so.
something like that.
Yeah.
There was
So
chat of
maybe
that.
it'll
So
come
that
back in some form.
there could be some form of bars that have a rooftop. I just don't think it's going to be like a priority for businesses in the first
Mm.
3 months as they get back on their feet. They're not going to be struggling to get people in. You
Yeah,
know, like they're
totally.
going to be at max capacity for a while. So you don't really get comedy nights pop up until bars are like, how do we get people in on a Wednesday? You
Yeah.
know, and then they go, we should start a comedy night. And
Mm.
that's
And
so
they're
I
probably
think
low
there
on
will be a
money now
delay.
because of the lockdown. Like they probably don't have like cash to splash necessarily. They're
Yes.
just trying to
I
get
think
back into business, I suppose.
there will be a bit of a delay of live entertainment in that regards because businesses will just be trying to get back on their feet until the start of next year, I think.
Mm.
So yeah, I think hopefully Lewis and we're looking into starting some kind of monthly like room where we
Cool.
can just like, like 50 people and we just advertise it on the podcast or whatever and don't make a huge deal of it just to film the shows and stuff
Yeah.
and have
Great.
fun. But I don't know. That's about it. Well, what about you? Are you just working on podcasts for the rest of the year?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. So we've nearly wrapped up on a lot of the Hamish and Andy pod. Like I think we're up to episode 115 coming out this week. So then there's gonna be 120 for the till the end of
Mm-hmm.
the season. So we've got a few more to do. Working with Tofop, all of their podcasts, which has been really fun. That's such a funny show as well. So I'm really enjoying that. And then um I don't know, man. Like I'm doing the Chaser as well, which has been really good.
What's your role
Um,
in that show? Is that like a producing role or?
Producer, editor. Like I just like,
Yeah, right.
yeah. And yeah, so there's a lot of it's a lot of podcasts, but then yeah, trying to do more stuff like this, Mike Talks, and I'm launching my Harry Potter and the Boys podcast within the next few weeks. So that's another thing.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So
Are you
that's
going to start it off at the start again?
yeah, I'm just gonna start it afresh.
Yeah.
And an episode every week, and I'll maybe get guests on to do what you did on my podcast when you came on all
How
those
much
years ago.
had you written of this
There's
fan
seven
fiction?
books. There's 7 books. The first one is like
You wrote
300 pages.
7.
Yeah, but
You wrote
they're
7
like on
books.
size 20 font or something. Like it's not like, it's not a substantial thing, but there's a lot. So, if I'll do the
That's
first book and then
crazy.
if it goes well, I'll keep doing it. And then I'd love to do some more release the sound songs and stuff. And yeah, but that's sort of where I'm headed for the time being. Your pod with Lewis obviously is going really well. That's really funny. And I assume most people who listen to my pod will have listened to Luke and Lewis prior to that. But that's been really good. But you're hoping to get back into the same room.
Not everyone. I know a lot of people listening to pod that just, from Hamish and Andy, Jack, different places. But
Yeah.
and yeah, we're hoping to get back in studio next week if we can like work out the legality of it all. Definitely by November 8th. And I
Yeah.
think because it is a workplace, even though it's at his house, it's registered as a workplace. We should be able to get back into it next week, which is so refreshing. The audience I feel like we've got a bit tired of the Zoom thing. I mean, I
Yeah.
haven't seen Lewis since like late June.
Mm.
Not like in person. We chat all the time, but yeah, I haven't seen any of the boys. So it's just like one of those things where the content's been getting a little stale for us because like we don't do anything either. So when you're trying to come up with
no stories to tell.
with two things of content, you know, we lean a lot on emails from listeners and stuff like that. But you need some stuff of like, this happened the other day, but when you're leaving the house like once a day to go for a run and going out of your way to avoid people, you don't get many.
Well, from an outsider's point of view, man, because I listen to every app and I reckon it's sounding great. And you guys
that's very kind.
You guys make funny from nothing. Like you guys take what I love about your show is you reference the fact that you're low on content and you turn that into what's funny about your show. Like the flippancy of your show, and this hasn't changed since Modern Digital. The flippancy of your show is the funniest part, and it's
always it's. I was gonna say it's probably the most self-aware like show of all time, where it's too self-aware to the point where it's almost to our detriment by the end, because we just blatantly tell people when we have no ideas. We're like, guys, you can probably tell this episode's gonna suck, and we say that in the first minute. So like, there's no reason to keep listening up.
What's the new thing where you're saying like, oh, we're gonna poo
this one out? Yeah. We got halfway through. We get halfway through the park episode last week. We tried to do an episode at a park where I was with Ruben because we live within 25 kilometers of each other, and Keelan was with Lewis. And it gets halfway through, Lewis and Keelan just wrap up this shit bit that wasn't funny, where they were just waving to each other, and you just hear me go, boys, I thought public poos were illegal because we are shitting this out. And it's just like, was this massive moment of we are in a park doing the worst content imaginable. Keelan is pretending to be a bird, and it's not hitting at all. And I think, that maybe is the appeal of the show at this point. It's like, what are they going to come up with next to try and entertain us? There is something likable about it, but at this point, I think we need to ease up on that a bit.
Well, thanks for your time today, Luke, and I will finish up this podcast, and I really appreciate it. Go to lukekidgell.com, check out Luke's stand-up special and merch, and check out Luke and Lewis and Memoirs of a White Guy and Luke Kidgell on YouTube. But I will finish this podcast by going, all right, mate. All right.
Hooroo.
All right. Well, all right. Be good. I'll chat to you soon.
Hey, Mike. Hey, be good to your mum. Be good to your mum.
Oh, bloody hell I am. What's she bloody telling you?
Just be good. All right. Come on.
Oh, well, what's she bloody told you?
Mate, it hasn't told me anything. All right. I'm just telling you. Be good. All right, mate? I'm going to go.
All right.
All right, mate.
All right.
Hooroo.
You were a puppet this whole time, you were attached to string. You were a puppet this whole time.